Hello again and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons. I'm your host and I'm glad you're tuning in. Hard to believe it's like summer's wrapping up. How did that happen? I think we were just talking about the pools opening and now the pools are closed. Weather's looking good this week. It's supposed to be hot and sticky and humid because that's what it's been all summer pretty much. But come the weekend when we all have a couple days off, of course it'll be in the 70s, so go figure. But still, it's no excuse not to get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. Even in Manchester, take the dog for a walk, go out on the river. You can still go up to Edgewater Kayak up in Hooksett and rent a kayak and kayak on the river. All sorts of great things to do outdoors. But back to now. Joining me today is Jean Mathieu. Jean Mathieu is somebody I've known for quite a few years. She is a financial advisor.
Yes.
With her husband Steve Mathieu at Legacy Financial, right up here on Elm Street. We've known each other from political spheres for
Many years, yeah.
And Jean this year is running for state rep in Ward 4, which is Hillsborough District 9?
11.
11. There's a secret.
Yeah.
You add 7. Nope, I got it wrong. You add 7 to the ward number, and that's how you get the district.
Oh, there you go.
But then I have to do the math, and I have to take 17 minus 7 and come up with Ward 10 and see if it's awful. Anyways, so Ward 4, if you're considering voting this year, you should listen to what Jean Mathieu has to say today. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks for the invitation.
You been have a great summer?
Oh, I did. Steve and I just came back from a week's vacation up in Maine where we actually went camping and RVing. We had never done that. We haven't done an RV before. Freeport.
Oh, nice.
Lovely city.
Yep. And it was a great weekend.
We spent the whole week.
Yeah, it was
good
weather.
A great week. Except for Wednesday, it poured, but that was okay. It was a good day to be shopping.
That's right.
So we did that, and then on Saturday we had a family reunion with over 50 extended relatives from Canada, Maine, Massachusetts, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So it was just a wonderful time to bring the generations together in a big family environment. Lobster, of course, was served in abundance, and corn on the cob, and it was a really memorable event. So it was an awesome summer.
And I'll tell you, it's funny that you say, camping. Dan and I have been camping all summer. We make it a point to camp more than we used to. And we were just camping this past weekend I'm going to draw a blank. 3 Ponds, Milton, New Hampshire, which the pond, when you kayaked across, you were in Lebanon, Maine. So
cool. Very cool.
Anyways, so we didn't bring Jean on today to talk about camping, although we probably could. I wanted to talk to you about state issues and your race for state rep, because I think you'd make an awesome state rep.
Thank you.
And we can talk about some of the things that people are interested in, some of the things that maybe just we're interested in. I don't know. One thing that did bubble up in my news feed this morning was occupational licensing, which more and more has become a more important issue for me in my campaign as well, partially because I just think it doesn't serve the purpose that people think it serves.
The amount of licensing that happens in the state is onerous, and people I don't think really understand how difficult it is in some cases. I think a favorite one that we like to talk about in the state is the shampooing assistant, that the amount of hours it takes in licensing goes beyond just to shampoo someone's hair. Well,
there was an article today that I saw because somebody from Americans for Prosperity had shared it. In New Jersey, their assembly, which is the equivalent of our state house, and their state senate unanimously passed a bill to remove hair braiding from their cosmetology occupational licensing. Unanimously. And the governor in New Jersey vetoed it.
Wow.
It's like, okay. So that made me stop and think. I'm like, well, geez, does New Hampshire, because New Hampshire's we're not as bad as some states on occupational licensing, but we still have, like you said, onerous barriers to entrepreneurship and to employment. There are things that people just don't think about. Hair shampooing. If you're, if you need a job and you want to start working in the cosmetology field, if you want to work at a hairdresser, the best way to get experience would be to work at a hairdresser, not to get a piece of paper from the government.
Right.
And it may sound like not that big of a deal, but the hours for some of the hair, I look at it this way. I don't think anybody needs a license to cut this. I mean, come on, there's not that much there.
Well, there's a false premise that our options are either A, we're going to have a horrible disease-ridden marketplace to get your hair done, or B, the government manages it entirely. And that's a false premise. And I would argue that consumers are going to gravitate toward beauty shops, for example, that are quality and clean, not damaging your hair, where got great reputations.
Well, and I said, if we're talking, cleanliness is obviously a legitimate concern in any industry.
Right.
And I wouldn't even still be opposed. Okay, so they could still inspect the salon to see if it's clean.
Right.
What's that got to do with requiring 1,500 hours in order to cut hair in New Hampshire? 1,500 hours.
It really boils down to being a barrier to entry.
And
it goes to one of my real campaign planks, which is to stop crony capitalism or stop cronyism in Concord.
Yep.
And when you think about who's benefiting from requiring a shampoo girl to have 1,500 hours, well, the other ones that already have it.
Electrician's board is the one that jumps out at me. The people who sit on the electrician's board are the master electricians. So if we opened up, the apprenticeship program to make it easier for people to get their electrician's license, guess who they're directly competing with? The people who make the rules on the electrician's board.
They have a self-interest to limit the amount of competition
because then there's the fewer electricians, the fewer hairdressers, the fewer anything, the more they can charge and the more demand they are personally instead of...
Tammy, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in this area of occupational licensing that we can absolutely carve out.
Well, I was glad to read when like I said, this New Jersey thing made me go back and look. I'm like, please tell me we did something. Well, in 2017, State Rep Carol McGuire from Epsom, she sponsored a bill that removed hair braiding from our cosmetology. But even then, you look at the way we overcomplicate things. It still has to go into, length explaining what hair braiding is and isn't. And I'm thinking, it's hair braiding. Do we really have to say natural hair braiding includes the use of natural or synthetic hair extensions? Do we really need to, have a whole page of our RSAs?
I'm exhausted listening to you read that.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's just crazy. So I did look. Cosmetologist, 1,500 hours. A barber, 800 hours. Which is kind of odd because that's almost half as much as a cosmetologist.
Does a barber include shaving?
I would think so.
In which case you've got a razor to the neck. I think more hours definitely there.
A makeup artist. Now I'm trying to think of that. What's the danger in a makeup artist? 600 hours. 600 hours. Do you know that in EMT, it's 300 hours or 115 hours? Because I have this handy list. It's New Hampshire licenses several occupations that are rarely licensed elsewhere, such as animal trainers, sign language interpreters, because that's a big one, $875 fee to be a sign language interpreter, opticians and auctioneers. Among those, sign language interpreters face particularly steep burdens in New Hampshire, $875 in fees, and about 1,469 days, 4 years and 40 hours of education and 2 exams, to be a sign language interpreter. And why?
Well, Steve and I are in the investment services, and we are the amount of regulation and the burden that we deal with. It takes up weeks of our time to conform to the regulation that is just crushing us. So, I'm all about, like I said, carving out that obvious things that are so distended and create real barriers to entry so that people that want to work and be productive can do that more easily.
I think it probably all of these occupational licenses on the economic scale probably hinder the lower end of the scale far more than the higher end, because the kid who comes out of high school and didn't go to college and would like to, is good with his hands and wants to maybe be an electrician or would like to cut hair, there's still this huge hurdle just to go out and make a living and be able to support yourself and your family.
Yeah, I would agree. On the surface, that certainly seems true.
So...
No, I'd be with you on that one. Absolutely.
I think Jean and I
we'd be on the same page.
On a lot of things. There'd be some things we won't agree on, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I always say one of the best things about being a legislator and things that voters should think about is, do you think that the person that you're electing can be objective and at least be willing to discuss opposing views? I don't have
so true.
I don't have to agree with somebody that I'm discussing legislation with, but I have to at least have the demeanor that allows me to have a reasonable adult conversation and share ideas and find out where we have common ground, rather than just put your feet in the mud and angry.
Is it possible that there's something there you don't know?
There probably is. When I sat on the labor committee, I was always interested in hearing, well, what's the argument for something that I don't... like make your arguments as to why you think we should increase the minimum wage. Maybe you can convince me. I was fairly sure they couldn't.
But is there something I'm missing?
Is there something I'm missing? What are the numbers? And in that case, I found out because I wanted to know how many people in New Hampshire make the minimum wage. Is this really a big problem? Well, then you find out that there's 1.5% of people working in New Hampshire make the minimum wage. And you're like, so who's going to benefit from this again?
Yeah. But those are the types of conversations when you have 400 people together in the legislature trying to figure, you've got to have those conversations. You got to dive deep.
You've got to be willing to listen.
And listen.
You don't have to change your view. You don't have to change your opinion. I don't have to change my personal views. But I think the willingness to hear other views is important. And I see some people up at the State House that I might even agree with who just don't ever seem to be able to do that, though.
Yeah, I think a saying that I heard is seek first to understand rather than to be first understood.
Right.
So that would be a position that I would take as I went through there, was to really listen and hear.
Sanity.
Because there's a lot of things I don't know.
There's a lot of things. People ask me about energy costs all the time, and I'm like, I'm not going to claim to know. I don't really know what we can do to reduce energy costs, but I'd be more than willing to listen to all the arguments for and against.
One of the cool things about New Hampshire is that we truly do have a citizen legislature. So there's so many of us like me coming from we're working folks. My husband and I run a business. And so what we're doing is we're coming on up and giving up our time, and a lot of time, to help push the benefit of the state in order to make the state stronger, to increase the New Hampshire advantage.
That's right.
For the benefit of ourselves and our family and our communities. So it's all about kind of giving that time, and so we don't know everything. Nope. We've got so much else on our plate. We're not going to know everything. So to go there with an open mind and really seeking to learn and understand, that's a big part of our job up there.
Yeah, I found that when I was first elected, the same thing. Because I mean, you think about it, there's 13 standing committees, and they cover some of the things that you're asked to vote on. You've never even heard of, let alone understand.
Yeah.
But I had to find myself. Had to give myself some ground rules in my head to look at things, try to back up and take the emotion out of it and take the personalities out of it and say, does this grow government? Does this pull back on government? Does it increase freedoms and liberties, or does it pull back on freedoms and liberties? Does it cost people money that is just? Because I do think, everybody says, oh, no taxes. Well, I'm never going to vote for tax increases either. But I did have to answer a question recently. Honestly, I said, but I can come up with a scenario where I would. And they were like, oh, no. And I said, no, we have a gas tax. People think the gas tax is to fix the roads and bridges. But the gas tax funds the Department of Safety. Well, how about we take that out of the gas tax and let the Department of Safety come to the House just like every other department and ask for a budget and have it be part of the general fund, and let the gas tax go to fixing just the roads and bridges. Then, if we needed more just to fix the road and bridges, then that's different.
That really has to go to the issue of clarity in budgeting and honesty and integrity of our budgetary system, so that it's clear to the taxpayer how their funds are being used.
Yeah, when you're paying this, where is it going? Because if it's just going into the general fund, then don't call it don't make it sound like it's a user fee for driving on the roads. So,
speaking of driving on the roads, as I was talking to some of my neighbors and working in the ward on this, I was talking to a lot of folks that are commuting down to down to Massachusetts. We have 84,000 people a day
that drive south.
And what's really awesome about what's going on right now in our economy is I think we can all feel this sense of openness where the economy is opening up, jobs are just springing up, and so it's a great time. But I think there's a lot we can do at the state to help open New Hampshire even further.
I agree.
And in talking to these folks, I did the math for the typical individual that has an hour commute. And if you're going down into Boston, it's more than that.
If you go to Cambridge, forget it.
Yeah, forget it. But let's just say it's only an hour a day. A working family each day, that's 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I'm going to assume this is a very industrious person, so they go 52 weeks out of the year. Right. They may not. That's 21 24-hour days that they've lost in a car. Now, imagine this is a dad with young kids at home. 21 full 24-hour days he's given up. That's a lot of frustration. There's mental stress. There's the cost of it. Why aren't those jobs here?
I know. I'm always amazed that there's, in Lowell, you got the Lowell Belt, and that whole hub of Massachusetts continues to attract a lot of high tech industry, and you wonder, like, why not just right over the border into Salem?
One of the biggest issues is energy costs. Energy costs is huge in New Hampshire. Many employers come, and when they're comparing it, especially manufacturing or production, anything that's a high energy cost industry.
Well, even high tech, people underestimate. If you have anything to do with servers,
right,
your electric bills are through the roof.
You're right. So energy is a huge issue for me, and that's going to be something that I really want to work on so that more employers can consider New Hampshire. So that's number one. I think secondly, healthcare costs. We have the fifth highest per capita cost in health expense in the country, and there's no excuse for that. And part of the reason is that we have high regulation that limits the number of insurers that we have. We've gone from over 40 insurers back in the 90s down to I think we have three right now. It's horrible. No wonder.
There's no competition. And you can't buy. I mean, why can't we buy why do they limit, like, it's just not New Hampshire. Why are we limited to just buying insurance from companies in New Hampshire? We can go to work in Massachusetts, but we can't buy. If we work in Massachusetts, we can buy their health insurance. But if we work in New Hampshire, we can't buy their health insurance.
And we have in 2018 we had a 52% rate increase. But you know what's really hitting the families in my ward? What's really hitting them is the out-of-pocket costs.
Well, because they skyrocketed.
Yeah, the out-of-pocket costs. We are one of the highest states in the country again for out-of-pocket costs, and that's if you look at 10 to 15% of a family's income going out towards out-of-pocket costs, insurance premiums, deductibles,
and that's
co-pays.
For people that don't even have major health issues. That's just day in day out normal, taking the kid to the pediatrician for a checkup.
And for the folks that are retired, I know that their expense in Medicare that's gone up too, but they really have no idea as a percentage of income what the young families how bad it is, and those young families are struggling.
Even just for Dan and I, and we don't have any children, but I mean just on our insurance in the past couple of years, I mean I can remember just maybe 3 years ago, I think I was paying like $300 a month. It was just some normal amount of money,
Tammy.
And we had, I don't know, a $2,000 deductible. Now I don't want to know. I really honestly do not want to know what we pay a month. And I think we have a $6,000 deductible.
Right.
So what's the point?
What's the point?
That is catastrophic insurance. That's not health care.
That's not health insurance.
That's not making it any easier for me to go and get psoriasis cream whatsoever.
It's no longer really health insurance.
It's
an administrative health sharing is what we're doing. But it was funny this weekend, and when I got back from our camping trip and I was putting everything away, a little piece of paper fell out of a folder that I had, and it was my benefit statement from my employer from 1997. My insurance cost monthly was $40 a month. And my copay was $10, and I had that was it. And so we've gone from that to the situation right now where next to in fact, sometimes it's more than your mortgage.
I know people who their insurance was costing them more than their mortgage. Because if you bought your house,
And that's not including the deductibles and the copays and the out-of-pocket expense. So that's number 2 on my list of things to make New Hampshire more more business friendly is to bring competition and open up that marketplace to both the businesses that are paying those premiums to the consumers and their costs, because nobody deserves to be treated and abused financially like we are right now with healthcare.
It's unfair because and your option is if you don't do it, then they just fine you. And if if you're making a halfway decent income, that penalty is significant, and you still don't have anything to protect you in the catastrophic. Like Dan and I would just be happy paying catastrophic insurance for if something terrible happened, and putting our money in a health savings account.
Right.
And then it's just our money, and when we need it, we'll have it. Imagine if everybody, when they were 18 and started a job, instead of paying into an insurance plan that they never use, because knock on wood, most people don't use their insurance.
Most people don't.
I can go from when I was 18 till God only knows how old, and never used my insurance.
Yeah.
And imagine if instead at 18 you were putting a percentage of your income, even if it was like 1%, into a health savings account for medical care. Even if the government required it, but it was still in your name, in your health savings account. By the time you were 50, if you just had catastrophic insurance, there would be so much money in your health savings account. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Just crazy stupid.
Yeah, it is. And so getting that kind of relief to employers and to families is a huge
and
priority.
I know when we get up there together,
yes,
I would like to see us revisit reducing even more business taxes. The number, the trajectory
is huge.
Is huge. When we reduced the tax, the people on the other side of the aisle will say, well, if we reduce the tax, we're just reducing the amount of money we can spend on needed services. But what happens is actually the money that comes into the state increases.
That's a false narrative, because that assumes that the pie is limited. That the pie is only so big it will never get bigger.
That's right.
We know from our experience, and this isn't you and I feeling warm and fuzzy about it. This is hard numbers. Let's talk facts and not emotion.
Yeah.
The facts support that. When you reduce that tax to that and bring more business in, the economy overall increases, the revenue to the state increases. So it's a false narrative, again, to just assume that there's only this one option and that it all sits within a confined space. It doesn't. The pie can grow. Growing the pie ultimately provides
that's right. It
provides
provides jobs.
Everything.
It provides options. It provides more money for everything.
Yeah, higher standard of living for everyone. It's win-win-win. It's the win-win-win option, and that's what it is that I want to try and provide.
So she's flashing that we had 10 minutes and we've been talking. So I do want to talk a bit about the primary. The primary is on Tuesday, September 11th. So just a couple weeks from now, which came up out of nowheres. And Jean is running in Ward 4, which is Hillsborough District 11.
Yes, ma'am.
And she does have a primary. There is a three-way primary on the Republican side, and I believe you have a primary on the Democrat side in Ward 4. So there's going to be a whole lot of hubbub of activity. In addition, there's the CD1 race has a primary. The Executive Council race has a primary. So there's many, many reasons besides just coming out and voting for Jean to go out and cast your vote on Tuesday, September 11th. So I'd like to give Jean a few minutes to talk a little bit, just talk to the voters, tell them why they should come out and vote for you, and how they can reach you if they have any questions and stuff like that.
I was just going to see if I had one of my cards. Oops, sorry. Hang on. Which I do. So I'm going to be going out door to door, and I'll be handing out my palm cards. You might see the Jean Marie Mathieu. I'm using my middle name on there. It's a good French name, so Jean Marie Mathieu. So if you see my red signs out, that's who I am. But the reason why I'm running is because I really believe that you, the individual, is really best suited, rather than the state, to determine what's in your own best self-interest. And so by doing that, what I want to do is I want to reduce the burdensome regulation and the intrusive institutions that erode your personal and economic freedom. So that's why I'm running. And we've talked a little bit about these key issues that are so important to me, and I look forward to hearing more about them. If you want to reach me, you can go to my website at electjeanmathieu.com. That's electjeanmathieu.com. There's ways to contact me, make donations, the all-important money. It really does fund the campaign. That's always good. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me via that. I look forward to seeing you in the neighborhoods, and appreciate your vote on September 11th.
That's awesome. If for some reason you can't figure out how to type electjeanmathieu.com, you can always reach out to me here at the show. My email is ManchTalk@gmail.com, and I would gladly put you in touch with Jean. Besides the primary coming up in 2 weeks, there's not much going on, which is kind of funny considering it's Labor Day weekend this weekend. You can go up to Hopkinton and go into the Hopkinton State Fair. It's always fun. Go up, have a bunch of food that you probably shouldn't eat, but it's always fun. Concerned Taxpayers of Manchester is revitalized and trying to grow a bigger organization, which is awesome for the taxpayers here in Manchester. And they'll be meeting this Thursday, August 30th. At 6:30 at the Manchester Public Library on Pine Street. So if you're concerned about taxes and you want to come out and meet them, that would be a good place to start. I want to remind people that coming up in a couple weekends, on the weekend of the 14th through the 16th, is Glendy, which is right in Jean's neighborhood.
Yes, it is.
Great way. If you like Greek food, this is the place to go. If you want to enjoy Greek culture, it is an amazing event.
It is a Manchester tradition.
It is a Manchester tradition, something not to be missed. And back to the primary, if the polls in Manchester are open from 6 in the morning till 7 in the evening. If for some reason you will be out of town on primary day and unable to make it to the polls, you can go to the city clerk's office and request an absentee ballot and vote ahead of time in person right there at the city clerk's office. That is for those who, if you know you're going to be unable to go to the polls, if you work out of state and don't think and can't get back before 7, or if you're going to be in the hospital having surgery or anything like that, that you do have the right to vote via absentee ahead of time, and you can go right down to the Manchester City Clerk and they'll help you with that. You can also go to their website, manchesternh.gov/city clerk, and they have all the polling locations. You can just type your address and it'll tell you where you can vote. It's your vote that makes the decision on how things turn out in our state, and primary elections are important. So get out there and vote for Jean on the 11th in Ward 4, and I'm sure you'll do well.
Thanks, Tammy.
No problem. I'm glad that you came in, and I think we'll probably have you back on. I want to start lining up candidates from the primary through the general and talk to more people and give more opportunities for people to hear more about who they have the option of voting for.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. It's great. So as I said before, you can reach out to me at ManchTalk@gmail.com or follow me on Facebook at ManchTalk. That's all I've got. If you've got any ideas for shows, any questions about anything we talked about, if you want to just send me a nasty email, feel free. I've got pretty tough skin and I can take it. Until next week, that's all I've got. Get out there, enjoy the weather. Summer's going to be closing up and, snow's coming soon. So get out there and take a walk. Until next week, bye.